Letter number 1 from Nathan Jones, Camp Butler, September 13, 1862. My dear brother and sister, I now write a few lines to you, to let you know that I am well at this time, and I hope that these few lines will find you enjoying the same blessing. I told you that I would write to you as soon as I got back to Camp Butler. I got back to camp the next day after I left home. I found all of the boys well and in good spirits. They seems like brothers to me. I can't help but liking them. We was mustered in yesterday. They will be examined tomorrow, and then they will find out who will took. There is a good hopes of this all a-going on. I will tell you about these prisoners. They are all sons of them, took the oath, and the rest of them was exchanged. They all left here last week. Men deserted the other day, but 3 of them come back. They had to put a guard over them when they went out to be mustered in. Now I must change my subject. I want you to write to me, whether they are all dead or not. I have wrote 4 letters but got no replies yet. Tell them to write to me as soon as you get this letter. I must fetch my letter to a close. Will be here, Camp Butler, 115th Regiment Company, Captain Huckstep, near Springfield, William Hankins, Nathan Jones. Letter number 2 from Nathan Jones. Camp near Richmond, Kentucky, December the 4th, 1862. Dear brother and sister, I set myself down this evening to let you know that I am in the land of the living and hearty. I hope that these few lines will find you all well and hearty. I received 1 letter from you since I left home, and I thought that you had forgot. I am in hopes that this will remind you of me. I wrote to you 3 or 4 letters and have not got any yet. I have not got any good news to write to you, only that the state of Kentucky has come to be loyal again, and that is some. We have traveled about 500 miles and we have not seen the enemy yet, and I am a-thinking that we will not see them this winter, for we are camped in a nice place, and I think that we will stay here this winter. We are in about a half a mile of town, and that is as close as we wish to be. They say that there is rebels at Cumberland Gap, and that is about 100 miles, and there is not many of them there. I have write to you all, and I want to tell father and mother to write to me, how they get along. Well, I can't think of anything more to write at this time. Well, I liked to have forgot. You must tell my folks that they must write to me as often as they can, and I will write as often as I can. I will write so as you all can hear from me, for letters and stamps are hard to get. Here we can't get them unless we can buy them with silver, and we can't get that. Direct your letters to Richmond, Madison County, Kentucky, Company D, 115th Regiment, Illinois Volunteers, in care of Captain Huckstep via Cairo, Illinois. Nathan Jones, to Mr. William Hankins. Letter number 3 from Nathan Jones, June the 18th, 1863. Nashville, Tennessee. Dear brother and sister, it is with pleasure that I take my pen in hand to write you a few lines to let you know that I have not forgot you yet, and to let you know how I am well. I am almost well again. I hope that these few lines will find you all well and in good health. Well, Luzina, I don't hardly know what to write about, being there not much a-going on at this time. The boys is all a-getting better that is here in the hospital. I heard from my regiment the other day, and they was all well and in good health. Well, Luzina, I have been here 3 weeks last Monday, but have not been very bad. Well, I hasn't been so bad but what I could get up and walk about some. I am a-gaining all of the time now. I am weak yet, and am afraid that I will be weak for some time. If it was not for that, I would be well enough to go to my regiment, but I don't want to go there till I get stout enough to march with them and do my duty. Well, Luzina, I will try to fill my promise about that likeness that I promised to send you, but I am sorry to think that I did not send it to all of you when I was well and in good health, but now I am slim in the face. I don't look like I used to. I got a letter from Libby, and she wanted me to send her one if I was able to have it took. I got my pay yesterday and had 6 likeness took today, and if you get this letter and likeness, I want you to me and tell me how you like it, and if you don't like it, send me a letter and I will have it took again. Tell Alfred that if wants one to write me a letter, tell him that I want to know the reason that he don't write to me. Tell him that I have wrote to him a good many letters and can't get none from him, and I began to think hard, to think that he can't write to me. Well, I will close by asking you to write as soon as you get this. Direct to Nashville, Tennessee Hospital, number 12 Ward. So goodbye. Nathan Jones to William Hankins. Letter number 4 from Nathan Jones. September the 5th, 1864. Tunnel Hill, Georgia. Dear brother and sister, while I am writing to the children, I will write you a few lines to let you know that I am well at this time, and I hope that this will find you all well and hearty. Well, I have not much news to write about, but I will tell you all that I can. We are all well and doing the best here at this camp, than any camp that we have ever been at. It is a healthy place here, and we get everything that we want to use in the eating line. I don't think that there is a war in the regiment at this time, but what is able to take care of themselves. I have never saw the boys look so well since I have been in the service. I got a letter from Sis yesterday, and she told me that the men around there was making up a company of home guards and hope that they will, so as to keep them cursed traitors still, and if they can't keep them in peace there with your means, I say to and let them go for the earth. It is too good for enemy traitor to live on. Well, I must write some to Sis, so I will have to fetch my remarks to a close for this time. So I want you to write as soon as you get this, so no more, but I remain your brother until death. Goodbye, write soon. Nathan Jones. To William Hankins and Luzina Hankins. Well, Joanna, I will write you a few lines to let you know that I am well and hearty, and I hope that this will find you the same. I got your letter yesterday and that present that you sent in the letter, and it is very nice, and you must write and tell me what kind of present you would like to have, and tell me and I will send you a present. Well, sis, you must write when you get this. I would write more, but the mail is starting out and I want this to go out, so no more at this time. Write soon. Goodbye. Write again. Nathan Jones to Joanna Hankins. Nathan Jones was killed at the Battle of Buzzard Roost Gap a little over 1 month after writing this last letter, on October 13, 1864. He was shot in the head by a musket ball that came through a porthole in a blockhouse that was defended by 45 Union soldiers. The blockhouse was held for 12 hours against 30,000 Confederate troops, when only about 3,000 were expected. The blockhouse was bombarded by 70 cannons and struck by 133 cannonballs, until the commanding officer finally surrendered under a flag of truce. There are varied reports of the actual numbers that were in the blockhouse, which was between 41 and 45, counting those who died. Also, there are variances within reports of the actual duration of the battle, between 10 to 12 hours in length. Captain Samuel Hymer was the commanding officer during the assault on the blockhouse. Here is a description of what took place, in his own words. I had received orders to hold the gap and not surrender to any force. In anticipation of such an attack, we had been supplied with plenty of rations and ammunition, and a large tank inside the blockhouse was constantly kept filled with fresh water. Confederate officer General Bate led the advance and appeared before us at 1 p.m. on the 13th of October. His adjutant general, Captain Carter, appeared on the mountain side with a flag of truce, but not recognizing its character, I shot his horse from under him. Soon they brought up a battery of brass field guns and opened on the blockhouse with great fury, with both artillery and musketry. I at once placed my men, one half at the portholes and the other half serving them with loaded guns. This soon silenced their guns, but they quickly opened again in a less exposed position. In the meantime, the rebel infantry had passed over the spurs of the mountain, and had us completely surrounded. By 3 o'clock no less than 6,000 infantry and a battery were pouring shot and shell into the blockhouse. Thus the battle raged all that afternoon and evening. Now a man falls, then another, but the brave boys of Company D stand to their portholes, picking off the rebels in large numbers with their trusty rifles. As night came on, the surrounding hills were lighted by the rebel camp fires. Finally the firing ceased and I looked at the result of the battle. 5 of my men were dead and nearly all the rest more or less wounded. The blockhouse was torn to slivers, and the earth covering pouring in upon us. All was then still as the grave, excepting the groans of the wounded. I decided to await results. We were done fighting, but we had held the entire rebel army more than 10 hours, had enabled Sherman to make 10 hours gain on the enemy, and had saved our regiment at Tunnel Hill. I then placed all my men that were still able, at the 4 sides of the ruined blockhouse to watch for an assault. Very soon I saw a flag shaking over the railroad grade 10 steps away. To our challenge, the reply came, a flag of truce. I then went out and found it was Captain Carter of General Bates' staff. He came up on the grade saying, "I was afraid to be seen, as you have shot at everything in sight. This is the 3rd time I have tried to come to you with a flag of truce." He then presented to me the following demand. In the field near Dalton, Georgia, October 13, 1864. I am commanded by Major General Bate, C.S.A., to demand the surrender of this fort and garrison. Your officers and men will be treated as prisoners of war. Your defense has been gallant, and any further resistance will be an unnecessary effusion of blood. Theodore Carter, Captain C.S.A. Upon this I endorsed my acceptance as follows: I accept the terms, believing further resistance hopeless. Samuel Hymer, Captain Company D, 115th Infantry, commanding. I told Captain Carter his men must not enter the blockhouse until we had time to pack up and march out. We spent a half-hour putting on our best clothes, packing up our valuables and throwing guns and ammunition in the creek in the rear. We then marched out in line. "Is that all the men you have?" said the officer, to which I replied, "No, there are 5 dead, and twice that number wounded still in the fort." He exclaimed, "Oh, we thought there were 2 or 3 companies." While the fight was going on at the blockhouse, 8 companies of the 115th, numbering less than 300, were listening with great anxiety at Tunnel Hill. Company H was still at the bridge 3 miles above. Without artillery or fortifications, our little band was poorly prepared to meet Hood's 30,000. However, we had not been advised of Hood's approach, and supposed the attack being made was by Wheeler's cavalry, not more than 3,000 strong with nothing heavier than 6-pound guns. Determined to make as big a show as possible, a large part of our force was kept on skirmish line. Finally, when the firing ceased, we were uncertain whether it meant a surrender, or the retiring of the enemy from the contest. Macaulay, the Union scout, was then called into service and given a sure-footed, active horse. He was soon on his way over the northern slopes of rocky-faced ridge and around to the south side of the town of Dalton, to the home of his brother-in-law. Finding the town full of sleeping Confederates, the truth was apparent that Hood's army was there. Confirmed in this by his relative, he rode rapidly back to Tunnel Hill, where he arrived at about 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a relief to know what was before us, though that knowledge most strongly suggested a term in a rebel prison. Telegraph communication with Chattanooga, 31 miles away, had been cut off early in the evening. There were no supports nearer, except a few companies guarding government stores at Ringgold and other stations. Our latest orders were to defend the place, and Lieutenant Colonel Poteet was determined to do it, yet when made aware of the fact that Hood's army might be expected at daylight he hesitated to subject the regiment to capture without consultation with his officers. He, therefore, called a hasty council of his officers and submitted the facts. His own view was supported by all present, except one or two, and they quickly joined in a unanimous decision to make all possible defense and take the consequences. Fully realizing that our capture was a foregone conclusion, the next hour was spent in hurriedly making ready for a long trip in the south. Many put on 2 suits of underwear and the most durable suit of clothes, so as to be as comfortable as possible while visiting our southern brethren. Valuables were taken to the homes of citizens to be concealed from the expected captors. In the meantime the pickets were strengthened and the lines extended, so that as vigorous defense as possible should be made. The Confederates were already in motion and our guards could distinctly hear the noise made by a column moving around the southeast border of the village, and at the same time a similar movement was heard towards the west. Evidently we were being surrounded, and our fate would soon be known. Fortunately the Chattanooga road was still open and good use was then being made of it. Major General Schofield, then in command of Chattanooga, had been advised of the approach of the Confederates, and being unable to communicate by telegraph, had dispatched 2 couriers, well mounted, to bring his orders to us. At the moment of greatest peril, when our capture seemed certain, about 5 o'clock in the morning, those messengers dashed past our guards, not certain whether they were friend or foe, and disregarding their challenge, rode with all speed to the center of town near headquarters. In another moment General Schofield's order, "Abandon all stores and save your men if possible," was known to the officers and men there assembled. Colonel Poteet at once put the regiment in motion. Messengers were sent to all parts of the skirmish line, warning the men to withdraw as quietly and as rapidly as possible, and overtake the regiment without unnecessary delay. Never was an order more promptly obeyed. There was no time to save anything. An attempt at burning the many thousands of dollars worth of government stores in the depots and in the cars on the tracks would only have resulted in warning the enemy of our retreat, and almost certainly have secured our capture. We were quickly under way in good style. Though presenting a straggling line for a while, the most distant skirmishers soon caught up with the body of the regiment. As the light of day streamed over the hills we were nearing Ringgold, and not long after that we had passed the village and were climbing the hills beyond. Thus far it had been a rapid march, and it was well for us that it was so, for as we neared the summit of the hills to the northwest of Ringgold, the Confederate cavalry could be seen approaching on the opposite hills that we had just left. Apparently they had not been long in learning of our movement and starting the pursuit. However, Hood's delay at Buzzard's Roost Gap, caused by Hymer's stubbornness, had brought Sherman almost within striking distance, making it imperative that General Hood should attend to more important business than following the little band of the 115th. So, after appropriating so much of the government stores as his men could use or carry and burning the rest, he hastily moved westward towards the Alabama line. And his cavalry that were in our pursuit, not caring for a fight with infantry and being ignorant of our numbers, soon gave up the chase. Our march from that on was more leisurely. As we approached McAfee Church some of us recognized the ground on which we met Scott's rebel brigade on the first day of the Battle of Chickamauga. About 3 or 4 o'clock we stacked arms in Chattanooga, a very tired lot of men after our 31 miles forced march. The next day the escape of Hood's army into northern Alabama was known, and the day following the 115th returned to Tunnel Hill and resumed its old position.